with Senator Barb Kirkmeyer, and we're at the JOLT conference, as you know, and we're doing a little remote extra, so you can kind of hear a little bit about what the JOLT conference is about and why we do this. The JOLT committee is really focused on all of the above energy and exploring that kind of a policy and helping people understand through education and communicating, and then finally advocating. So as a legislator, I mean, as a senator, you're dealing with this kind of thing all the time. How does a conference like this impact your policy making and where you can go?
Well, first of all, I just say the conference has been phenomenal. It's been great. The speakers have been very informative. I mean, and you're not taking, we're getting them in short doses. So, you know, our attention span is right there, right? And the questions that people have been asking, the way the audience is engaged, this has been a very good conference. Very good. I've really enjoyed it. And then, you know, there's a lot that happens in the hallways too. So as a legislator, I'm actually on the Joint Budget Committee.
Okay.
So I've been having conversations with folks in the hallways about things that have come up at the Joint Budget Committee that are impacting, you know, the Western Slope. I live on
like what?
Like the Office of Just Transition, because I had some really big time issues with that at the Joint Budget Committee that they haven't done anything basically from my perspective. I mean, I think there's like about $30 million that was appropriated to the Office of Just Transition. And there's still like 29 million left or something. So it's like they hadn't really done anything other than staff up. And their job was to help people transition from jobs out of the energy industry, out of the coal mining stuff, into the power plants. Sorry, I'm like trying to think all about it. But, and transition into other jobs because, you know, under Polis administration in 2019 and years after, they've decided we're going to get rid of all of our coal-fired plants.
Just like that.
Yes. And so what happens to those communities? And you know, Pueblo is like, oh, well, it worked out great for us, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know so much that it did, but at the same time they were doing that with the coal-fired plants is when they were doing Senate Bill 181, remember, in 2019? And I'm from Weld County, and I just touched my microphone, but I'm from Weld County, and that's an oil and gas county. And they were like, we're going to help people transition. You know, as we kill your economy in your community, we're going to help people transition into good jobs.
So that's something I don't understand.
And they haven't done it.
So, you know, with what we know about science, Colorado's still very dependent upon fossil fuels.
The United States is still very dependent upon it. And I learned that at your conference.
But let's just talk about Colorado.
You know,
and so we have these goals of renewable, 100% renewable by what, 2030?
It's crazy.
So what, we just shut down these small towns and take the plants out, and then boom, no thought about what we could replace that with.
Exactly.
And so then we leave them vulnerable. So as a policymaker, I mean, that's not the kind of policy you want to really do.
It's certainly not policy that I support. You know, again, I know a lot more about oil and gas than I do about the coal industry and the plants and stuff, but this is a huge part of our economy in the state of Colorado.
Well, let's talk about oil and gas.
I mean, oil and gas was in, I think it still is in the top 3 economies of the state of Colorado. And I know, again, from a joint budget committee and even from being a county commissioner like you, we know the importance of these things in our economy and what they bring to the table for the people who live in these communities. And it is about great paying jobs and jobs that have great benefits and that type of thing, and how it makes our communities vibrant. But I'm telling you what, oil and gas, severance tax, mineral royalties,
what do we do with that?
Those play a huge role in the state budget. In fact, this last year, $300 million worth of water projects funded, through severance taxes. Funded through severance taxes. That's in the perpetual account, and that's, you know, it was $300 million
this year. What's the proposal if oil and gas goes away, right?
Exactly. They just don't even think it all the way through. Our schools are funded with oil and gas money, you know, and everybody wants to go after oil and gas, which, you know, when you start looking about what's really truly impacting our air quality in the state, you know, sure, I would grant it back in like 2006, 2005, back in that time frame, oil and gas had some issues, but I know in Weld County and throughout the state, we have really worked with the industry to curtail the issues that they've had with air quality. We have, if not the most robust rules, certainly very close to the most robust rules, not only in the nation, but in the world.
Right.
When you start thinking about what the United States does in comparison to places like China and Venezuela and other places. So we don't want to be getting oil and gas from those, you know, other places like Venezuela. So, you know, it's just astounding to me, the lack of knowledge and depth of knowledge in policymakers at the General
So
Assembly.
I'm glad you said that, because
Yes,
how do
it's
we, how
astounding.
do we educate those legislators to understand more about? Well, I'm hoping this kind of thing helps. But you know, a lot of people they're entrenched in their beliefs.
Yeah.
And even to consider another scientific perspective. I mean, when you listen to someone like Roger Pilkey, it just makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not sure we can. And I know that probably sounds sad,
Yeah.
but I'm just not sure we can. I don't know that they want to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
They've got, you know, their blinders on. They've got what they think is the most important thing in the world that they're going to do, which this last year they tried to totally ban oil and gas development in the state of Colorado.
Right. Well, that didn't work, right?
You know, and they're like, you know, because I was on the committee that we were able to kill that bill in committee, they, you know, every time I said something, they're like, oh, well, you are a former Weld County commissioner. You just want the money to come in. I'm like, you truly don't understand what this will do to the economy of the state of Colorado. It's not about Weld County. You know, I know I'm elected, you know, in a district that's in Weld County.
These are basic facts,
They
right?
are.
Right.
And no, they like to follow the science on certain things, but when you start pointing out the science with regard to air quality and oil and gas and the economy and these types of things, science, they're like, oh no, that just can't be true. I mean, I can't tell you how many local government communities who have done their own monitoring in surveys, you know, along the Front Range, like Lafayette, like Broomfield, I think Commerce City, and several different others, you know, that have done their own. And so has Weld County, but we actually follow what's in there. You know, we learn from those monitoring and the data that we're getting. They get the data and they're like, oh, this can't be true. And they spend all these, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars and then throw the data out because it doesn't support what they want to push forward.
But so we, you know, in some ways we're heading, it's like a locomotive without any brakes. So we're heading in this like 100% renewable, and it's not lost on me that a country like Germany did the same thing and then went, oh, that's not working.
Yeah. Oh, we screwed up.
We don't have enough.
I know, it's true. So that's frustrating, but that's what's great about your conference is you've got all of these different perspectives talking about all of the above, you know, whether it's nuclear, and I've learned so much about nuclear, and I grew up close to Rocky Flats nuclear power plant.
Well, yeah.
Right? Which
yeah,
is
but
why
now
I'm
you
glowing.
know. Yes.
But,
She's
no.
kidding.
No, in a good way.
Yeah, yeah.
But no, I mean, I've learned a lot more, and so that's where I began with this when I said I was learning a lot and having these discussions in the hallway. So I've been talking about the Office of Just Transition because, again, at the Joint Budget Committee, I was like, why are we extending this? You haven't done anything.
Right.
And I talked to a couple of different folks, Jeff Comstock from Moffat County, who I've known for years, and he was telling me about some of the good things that office has done, but they only spent $50,000.
Well, it's been slow.
Out of
It's
millions.
been slow,
And
you
that's
know,
what he said. He
the
said,
west end of
Yeah.
our county could really use a little assistance and talking.
Yeah.
Have you talked to anybody from the west end yet?
Well, I talked to that Amy Tooker.
Amy Tooker.
I heard her stand up and ask questions, and I thought, oh, I need to go talk to her. So I went over and spoke with her, and I've got her number. So,
Good.
Amy, I'm going to call you.
Yeah.
And I told her I was, and so she would be prepared for it. But I want to hear what she has to say about this office. And you know what? If, as a Republican in the minority, if I have to keep this office in place, we're darn well going to make sure it works.
Yeah,
right? And that it
that's
works for the
perfect.
people who live here. Because, you know, I know like when 181 was going through in 2019, Senate Bill 181, and they created this Office of Just Transition. They talked about how it was for the Western Slope, but they also said it was supposed to be for Weld County. Well, that never materialized in Weld County, but you know, we're doing fine.
Okay. All
Right? So these funds should really be not only figuring out how to pump up the economy in our Western Slope communities, which is extremely important to the state of Colorado as well, but also about those jobs.
Good.
It's about keeping people in those communities and helping them find a different career that is a good paying job,
Right.
which is probably going to be kind of difficult to do, but at the same time, if you have a plan in place before these plants close, and I know with the, they were telling us at the JBC that plants are closing like 2029, 2030, and so that's why they haven't done very much yet, because the plants aren't closed, and I'm thinking, you know, that's ridiculous.
That's a heck of a plan.
Yeah,
Isn't that?
like you haven't done anything
Yeah.
except staff up
Well,
people
and I think
in
that
their
it's
offices.
these areas that are really in need are getting frustrated because,
Yeah.
I mean, we just it just perpetuates that government doesn't get there, doesn't
Well,
do it, right?
And so I'm kind of on a mission right now
Oh, good.
thinking, what do we need to do to change what's going on in this Office of Transition to make that money that we're putting towards this, and a lot of that money came from the COVID dollars, the ARPA funds that we had, but that doesn't matter. We're still supposed to use them in efficient ways.
Right.
I'm kind of on a mission, like I said, to figure out what can I be doing from a joint budget committee perspective, and maybe push some of my colleagues to maybe we need to carry some bills, or we need to do something to really make that money work for the people who live in these communities, so that they can remain in their community. You shouldn't have to move because the government, somebody down in the government who doesn't live here, doesn't know what's going on, says, well, we don't think you should be doing that anymore because it's messing up our air, because we just don't like it, you know, or they just don't understand it. That's just wrong.
Well, maybe we need to bring a contingent from the West End over to do a presentation to the JBC.
Maybe. I think we need to get them over here.
That'd be great.
You know, people are, if you have not been to the Western Slope, you need to come.
But
it's
if you haven't been to
beautiful.
the West End, it's a whole different thing too.
I mean, if you haven't been to Craig, you need to get there.
Yeah.
You know, if you've never been there, stop making decisions for someplace you've never been there.
See your state.
Yes, get to know what's going on, get to understand that community.
Well, I really appreciate that you're on the JBC. I mean, I think that you are the perfect person to be able to, I mean, I've watched you with CWAC meetings and things like that. You really understand how it impacts the communities. And so I really appreciate how you've legislated and how you fought for us and how you're fearless. And,
thank
so
you.
I really appreciate and thank you for taking a few minutes to chat with us about Jolt.
Absolutely. Well, I'm just going to say again, I love your conference. I'm going to try and figure out how to get back here next year. I was just telling Minority Leader Representative Puglisi, like, this is a great conference. You guys have a great lineup.
Good.
And so
Good.
I'm looking forward to coming back.
Great.
Plus,
We'll be in Rifle next year.
I know, that's what she said. So that'll be great.
It's closer.
It is, a little bit, but so that's okay. It's good.
Well, thanks again.
All
Good.
right. Thank
All
you.
right.
Appreciate it.
Take care.